Well, well, well. Fancy meeting you here. Good evening, everybody. It's me. It's Comic Crack. It must be Sunday. Um, Back to talk about the books that I read this week. A couple of stacks. But I thought we'd start off with some music. A couple of tapes here that I've had for a little while. This is Gria with a tape called Human Supremacy. I believe he's Italian kind of grindcore extreme metal band. Fantastic. You can see there. Very, very short album. There's all of the tracks that are on the album. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 tracks. A mere 13 songs on this new one. Really, really good. He was kind enough to send a bunch of things with it. A couple of buttons. There's a patch in here. There's a couple of stickers. Some of the stickers are gone on various items around the house here. But really, really great stuff there. As usual with this music, you can find it on Bandcamp. And then another really, really cool band, completely different. This is the Meridian Brothers. This is their newest release here. Mi Latino America Sufre, I'm guessing. So they're kind of like cumbia mixed with some electronic. This one, I think one of the main focuses is a lot of these are guitar-driven tracks as well. They have a whole bunch of stuff available on Bandcamp, and honestly, I'd suggest any of it. It's really, really good stuff. There's no two albums from them that sound the same, but they all kind of share a lot of similarities across all of the albums. I love the artwork on this one here. I have yet to listen to either of these tapes. I've just heard a couple of samples off of each of these, but it was kind of a no-brainer, this being their newest. And because I was ordering from them, the price for shipping when you got 2 tapes brought to Canada wasn't that much different, so I ended up picking up something else. And this is Meridian Brothers with and El Grupo Renacimiento. I'm sure that I pronounced that right. Don't even question it. So there's a look at the credits on that one. So the world of tapes still intrigues me. I still can't resist getting some of this stuff. There's something just amazing about the looks of all this stuff. But most importantly, it is about the music. As usual, I recommend, if you're a fan of music and you're a fan of exploring music and not afraid of exploring all sorts of different genres, really get yourself on Bandcamp and just start digging, clicking links, looking for genres, all of that stuff. There's so much on there to discover that I really think it's worth your time. They do a really nice job of kind of tagging everything with the genres, so then you can click at the bottom of the page on a release. I think it's on that page. They'll have a bunch of tag words that then you can click on to get more. They do a Bandcamp focus. I think they do it every day, where they focus on either a different genre of music or a specific record label or a specific artist. And then they'll do really good write-ups on the music and give you some samples and give you direct links to Bandcamp pages where you can purchase their stuff. Like I say, most stuff is available digitally, but there's still a lot of people that are putting out limited edition CDs, cassettes, records, all of that stuff. So there's your musical recommendations for this week. Had a chat with Rasa this afternoon. We are not back next weekend because I have to work all weekend, unfortunately. Fortunately and unfortunately. The other thing that I participated in this afternoon was a recording session with For the Love of Comics. We've talked about For the Love of Comics many times. You've seen him on the channel when we've done some Sunday chats. He started doing some interviews with some YouTubers. The first one up is with Mr. Earl Grey himself, kind enough to reach out to me. I know he's reached out to a couple of other people. I don't want to give any spoilers. So the conversation we had this afternoon pretty much focused on independent versus mainstream, etc. It was a fantastic conversation, honestly. I really appreciate him reaching out to want to talk to this fat old guy in Canada in his basement here. But it was really, really great. I really enjoyed my time. We talked for about, I don't know, like I said, 2.5 hours. The video is going to come out in about a week or two. I will for sure let you know, probably on here, but I'll definitely let people know if you follow me on any sort of social media, Twitter specifically. I'll probably put something out there, but I'll try my best to put a little notification on the channel as well, even if it's just a short. Yeah, hopefully once it is released, everybody enjoys it. I feel like we talked a lot about a lot of subjects that we talk about here on this channel as well too. We do get into a little bit of politics as well near the end. Yeah, great stuff. I hope you take a look at it. Dan Elson, how you doing, man? That's cool. I just started checking out his channel. Can't wait to see your interview with him. Yeah, it was fun. I don't normally do that kind of thing, but it was surprisingly good. We had a very loose structure of things we were going to talk about, and we just we started off in a very specific place and then just kind of talked. And I think that that worked out well. Gore Vidal, hello. Good thing you're here, Gore Vidal. I've got some things that you're going to appreciate in this hall here. Evening, Terrence. Looking forward to that chat. You are an OG in Comic Book Tube. Glad he invited you. I mean, I definitely am some sort of OG for sure. It was really nice, even during the Earl Grey one. It was really appreciated to get the props that I did. Very much not necessary, but I do appreciate it nonetheless. 420, hello. Did you make it to the con today, 420? And if so, how was it? I picked up too many things from the sale that's going on Facebook this week, so I couldn't really afford to go to the show, period. But also with this chat this afternoon, I just didn't have time. I would just talk cheerleaders, and honestly, Gore, I'd be there for that entire conversation. Story of O, yes, indeed, and Emmanuel. So, as I said, this week, there was a lot of great stuff up for sale on the Facebook group. We've talked about it for quite a few weeks now. This is the collection that is being sold locally, and that there's been some amazing stuff this week. It was a little bit of a pricey week, not too bad, but I feel like I got some really great stuff. There's just every single post has something that's appealing. A lot of it I do have, but some of the stuff that pops up, it's hard not to kind of jump on it, just to kind of upgrade my copies. This was kind of one of those lots. This is Brain Fantasy issue number 1 and 2. So I've got a copy of this number 1 already. Number 2, I just haven't been able to find ever on its own. I've seen it online, but never seen it in person. This issue number 1 is a bit of an upgrade for me, with its sort of Basil Wolverton kind of looking cover here. I think it's a later era Underground. Yeah, so 1974, so not too late. Larry Todd is in here. Michael Smith is in here. Michael J. Becker. Michael Smith again. Larry Todd again. On the Comics Joint website, he doesn't speak too highly of this one. It's kind of middle of the road underground comics as far as he's concerned. But being the guy that I am, I can't resist. Jumping on some of this stuff. I don't disagree with that 420. Some of the stuff, I understand the pricing. I get it. I look at it as well as if I was to pick up some of the stuff online, I might be able to find a better price online. But then I'd also have to factor in shipping and then the potential of getting hit at the border, depending on how much you purchase, right? So it is a bit of a tough thing. I'm trying to go for stuff. For the most part, I'm trying to go for stuff that I just don't find. And if I do find it online, it is around the same prices that she's going for. Like anybody within a collector's market, of course, I want to get a deal just as much as the next guy. But I do also understand how her pricing is going. I think that she's nearing a spot where there's a lot of stuff that isn't selling. And if she does want to sell things off, she is going to have to come to terms with either lowering the prices or, I mean, I'm still trying to convince her that doing a convention is the way to go. She was asking me about selling comics online in a message when I was talking to her one day. And I suggested that she not do that. Once you start dealing with shipping things out of province, you really have to know how to pack these comics really well. You then open yourself up to, if something does come damaged or not as you described it, then you're dealing with a lot of back and forth with strangers who might want to send the books back or get their money back or just kind of hassle you. And honestly, I was telling her that instead of dealing with that, you really need to just do a local small comic convention like the one that happened today. At one point, she said she was going to do the one today, and I was going to help her with pricing and then also work the table. But a couple of days later, they kind of changed their mind, which again, totally their choice. I just think that that's where you're going to get more these books in front of actual comic collectors and locally as well too. But again, I don't disagree on the pricing. I kind of wish she would come down a little bit on some of these, but I'm kind of flush right now, so I don't mind too much. The bulk thing is the big thing too, and I think that that's eventually what's going to happen when there's a bunch of stuff left over that isn't selling. I wonder if she's going to try to sell off the collection again and then be looking at taking, like, you know, kind of the prices that people generally pay for big collections, like 20 cents a book kind of thing. I wonder if she'd be more willing to have those conversations at that time. So yeah. And as you know, yes, I'll just say yes to that. 420. I do not disagree with you whatsoever. So there's Brain Fantasy 1 and 2. I have a second printing of Rolf. This is Richard Corbin's Rolf. This is the first printing, so because I'm a Richard Corbin fanatic and I'm an Underground Comics fanatic, I couldn't resist this one. It's in beautiful shape. Like I said, I've read this one a couple of times, but I kind of didn't want to pass on a first printing of this one. So this is now in the ranks. An issue of Taboo that I needed. I'm pretty damn close. I think I need 2 or 3 more issues of Taboo. This is issue number 2, Spider Baby graphics, and then of course it went to Tundra as well. Steve Bissette at the helm for this kind of horror anthology. This is from, what year are we looking at here? 1989, I think, or 1990. Seeing a number of dates here. But so Eddie Campbell is in here. Rick Grimes is in here. Tom Marnick, Stephen Bissette. A couple of names I don't actually recognize. Bernie Moreau, the one and only Bernie Moreau, who we haven't spoke about since his passing. Michael Zulli, Richard Sala. Of course, Alan Moore's From Hell is in here. Paul Chadwick is in here as well. So these are great anthologies. And again, it's another one that you just don't see these every day. And when I do see Taboo online, they do tend to go for quite a bit of money. And that's mainly due to the fact that From Hell is in them. This one also has some S. Clay Wilson, which they didn't say in the credits there. But every single one of these is just chock full of incredible creators and bizarre kind of horror stories. So I don't think there's a sleeper in the bunch. So it surprises and frustrates me that Corbin isn't as well known in mainstream comic world. Yeah, it is a bit surprising, especially because of the work that he did with Marvel. excuse me, sorry. But I guess I think he's one of those guys, maybe we've talked about in the past too, that he never really fully was accepted or fit in with the underground guys. There was a lot of the underground guys that didn't like him because his stuff was too kind of fantasy. I don't think he fully fit in with the heavy metal magazine crowd because he wasn't, again, because I think he was dealing with fantasy and things like that as well. He never really fit in with the mainstream crowd because his style was a bit unusual. I think he eventually found a pretty good home at Dark Horse when he was doing those Edgar Allan Poe stuff and when he was doing his horror things. I feel like that was almost the perfect fit for Corbin. But I think most of his career, I think he didn't quite fit in any particular area, or wasn't fully accepted, maybe is a better way to put it, in any specific area that that he was involved in. You need Rolf's second print. Well, that's good to know, Eliza. I'll keep my eyes open. If I see it, I'll be sure to grab it. You have a double of Taboo 9 if you need that one. I might, Dan. That might be one of the ones I'm missing. I don't know off the top of my head. I will take a look. He's too good for the mainstream dum-dums. It's true. I think his style is a little too weird for the mainstream stuff, even though he was tackling characters like Banner and Hulk and Cage and stuff like that. I think he just has too strange of a style for most mainstream people. So Taboo number 2. This was a pretty good find. I've never actually seen this one, even online. This is Gore Shriek Delectus. So from Fantico, the anthology Gore Shriek, I think this was the first kind of graphic novel collection of some of the highlights from that kind of famous anthology. 1989 is when this is from. And for me, Rolf Stark is a big draw in this, but there's Bruce Spalding Fuller is in here as well. Greg Capullo has a bunch of stuff in here. Stephen Bissett again makes an appearance. Who else? Chaz Ballin makes an appearance in here too as well for the inside back cover. But this looks ridiculously good. Some of these stories I've read, I don't remember that this was from an issue, because I've got some of the Gore Shriek issues on the computer that I downloaded from the internet. Here's some Greg Capullo stuff. You can kind of recognize it right away, even though he isn't fully Greg Capullo yet. He's pretty darn close to it. See if we can find some Rolf Stark. Here we go, right here. This will be Rolf with his book Rain that we've talked about on the show before. We've talked about that in the past. He's got an amazingly bizarre style that is very much his own. I mean, look at these pages. It's beautiful black and white. So yeah, this was a pretty great little score. Like I said, I've never seen this out there anywhere. So this is really great to have, because those Gore Shriek issues just on their own, those can get pretty expensive as well. Yeah, so there you go. There's the Gore Shriek anthology. An issue of Necron. I'll just actually catch up on the chat here. But who else besides Corbin started in the undergrounds, went into self-publishing, and ended up in mainstream comics as well? And that's the thing. I mean, the fact that he did all those things and he just kind of went where the work was, and he didn't shy away from any of those things, I think is really incredible that he had that kind of arc in his career, for sure. Ramones were never number one in the chart kind of thing. Yeah. Damn, those Gore Shriek pieces from the inside cover are dope. Yeah, they're really good. This is kind of iconic, this image here. I think that was Gore Shriek issue number 1, the cover for that one. That's very iconic. Could be a Iron Maiden or a thrash metal album cover, you know. So this is Necron by the one and only, I think they were a duo that went by the name Magnus. I've got one other book. I've got book 3 of this one. This is from Catalan Communications. I think they only did 3 volumes of Necron in this size here. It's great stuff. Magnus has a really great style. I've also got a book that Magnus did called The Specialist, and a really kind of bold black and white style. This is pretty it's pretty graphic, pretty gory, pretty grotesque and over the top comics here. But you know, that's why you come to this channel. You come to this channel to see this kind of filth, you dirty bastards. But it's great. I mean, even just looking at these pages, it's beautiful imagery, just great use of silhouette. So I'm looking forward to digging in to this one here. I just got a different anthology from Fantico that's just called Shriek. Oh, interesting. I don't know if I know that one there, Dan. This evening, you watched The Talk with Rasa. Surprised Gaiman's shows have been dropped, including Salmon. I'm a little surprised as well, too. I guess, I don't know. Maybe I take that back. I guess I'm surprised, I guess not surprised. Again, when you're dealing with the mainstream and you're dealing with any sort of mainstream success, they're going to kind of drop you pretty damn quick, even if there's a whiff of something off, you know, especially these days. I think, I don't know if that was classically always the case, but it definitely seems to be the case now. Axa, haven't seen her in decades. Oh, this is good stuff. You're damn right. I came here for the filth. Yeah, I know you do, Dan. I know. So this was another book. I've got a couple. So Eclipse Comics put this one out, and then they put out some other issues that were collecting some old Axa. I don't know if they were all this size. I have one other collection that's comic book size. I don't know. It might be that one there. So maybe they were all comic size. And then they had a 2-issue miniseries, and I think it was Chuck Dixon that wrote those 2 issues. But this was the first time Axa appeared on our shores, I think. The first American edition series. It's a adult fantasy. It's color. And honestly, this is, so now we kind of get into stuff that I've been reading this week. I really enjoyed this, probably more than I should have. It is absolutely trashy. It is just over the top. It takes about a page. Yeah, it takes a page before Axa gets naked. So that has the Comic Crack seal of approval right there. But what you get is some amazing creature designs and these very textured kind of backgrounds, these garish kind of colors and everything that I really, really dig. And I think that was the biggest appeal. This is kind of like an exploitation movie put down in comics form. It's a post-apocalyptic world. She's sort of a barbarian-ish, not really though. She's escaped from, well, not escaped. She's left her domed existence to go out and explore the landscape to see if she can find some other humans. And throughout her journeys, she comes across a whole bunch of creatures, both animal and then mutant. And here's the image from our pick this week on the front page there. So this was just plain fun, really over the top. There's not a ton of meat on these bones as far as storytelling, but you don't always need a prose masterpiece to enjoy comics. I love these kind of images. They really remind me of kind of like old Italian horror movies, The Tomb of the Blind Dead and things like that. What the hell is that? Sorry, there's some sort of insect crawling on me. Killed it. So this is good. And I think now I'm trying to remember if this collection that I have in comic form, if it's black and white or if it's in color as well too. I think it might be black and white, and it might be kind of newspaper strips format. It's been so long since I've looked at it. I should pull that one out of the archives and have another look. But yeah, this was a load of fun. Really, really great. So there you go. Not much else to say about it than that, really. And one of the great things here was she finds this father and daughter. Like, look at this. Tell me that's not a great image right there. That's so cool. and they're kind of pulled up in this lighthouse. Of course, they have a romantic interaction. Um, and then they hear these motorcycles coming, men on motorbikes with rifles shooting up the wild dogs. You better lock and bolt the lighthouse door. You don't trust those men on the motorcycles, Axa? No, the old people had a name for them. Hell's Angels. So the Hell's Angels roll up, and of course we get the obligatory party scene with the Hell's Angels. And it just kind of goes from there. So fun stuff. Just plain old fun, stupid fun. Let's see. But I also love the stuff you turned me on to. You hit me to Razor Guts, and now I'm on the hunt for any and all Francisco Solano Lopez. I mean, there's really nobody better to be on the hunt for, I would say. I'm still missing one issue of Razor Guts, and I have it bookmarked on my wish list on Lone Star, and I think it's only come up once in the years that I've had it on my wish list, and I missed it. And I think when it came up, by the time I got notification of the email and went to the website to see it, it had already sold. So I think it's too much. A page is too long for her to get naked. Yeah, true. Panel 2 maybe would have been more acceptable. I have a black and white Axa I got as a kid in the early 80s. Axa was topless throughout. The one I have is newspaper strip format. Yeah, and I think the one that I have is newspaper strip format as well, too. So I'm going to have to dig it out because I don't remember much. I don't know if I ever read the whole thing, to be honest. I might have just sampled a few of them and put it down to read later and never went back to it. But after reading this, I'd like to dig those up again. Gore Vidal, I mean, what can you say? It's Guido Crepax. It's Story of O, Book 1, and it's Emmanuel, Book 1 and Book 2. So I think each of these series had 3 books. I have a copy of the Story of O already that I bought a while ago, like a couple of years ago. I'm not exactly sure when, for I think $5, but it's in really rough shape. It has a little bit of, there was some dampness in it, so there's a little bit of like mold spots on the spine. It was in really rough shape, so this is an upgrade because all 3 of these books, it's like they were never read. Even when I opened them up, they had that stiffness of first being read, like I was the first person to kind of open them up. I didn't read Story of O, but I did read Emmanuel 1 and 2, and I fucking love this stuff. I love Crepax's work. I think his ability, we'll have a look at some of the pages. Emmanuel, a pretty infamous series, or I know them as a series of movies. I think even guys like Jess Franco might have had their hands in some Emmanuel movies. And then there was Black Emmanuel as well, too. There was a whole series of stuff, though. I haven't seen all of the movies. I've only seen a couple of them. But I'm sure that these have been collected now at this point by Fantagraphics. But I don't know, man. There's something about getting these NBM erotica volumes. So these are originally published in 1990. One of the things that I found really interesting is we get a bit of an intro about Guido Crepax. And then on the bottom of it, there's an editor's note. Emmanuel was prominent in the sexual revolution in forwarding the concept that lovemaking and sensuality need not be shackled by guilt. After this new series of books was turned down by more than 30 printers in the US, large and small, one discovers how far back into the Puritan hole we've fallen again. And while violence runs rampant and unchecked in the media, one wonders indeed whatever happened to make love, not war. That kind of blew my mind. And it made me think of, I wonder if when, yeah, Rochelle, good one. Good work, 420. Good work from Milan to Minsk. I wonder if Fantagraphics had any issue with wanting to get this printed. I mean, they didn't talk about it if they did, but I guess considering this was 1990, there was a lot of things coming down with pornography and things, right? And getting books across the border, even in the 80s, that I guess it doesn't totally surprise me, but it's kind of mind-blowing that 30 printers in the US wouldn't touch this, and they wouldn't reprint. They wouldn't even consider printing this. So we start off this one with just some samples. One of the things that's talked about in that intro is that you can read Creepax in a couple of different ways. The first is just to absorb the pages as an entire piece, and then you go in and kind of read panel to panel. And it's really is true. Like his layouts and page design are just stunning. And again, I know that I'm preaching to the converted here. I know I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know, but it's really nice to be reminded of some of these artists in this way by kind of going through these books. These are fantastic books. They're pretty fantastic stories. I feel like I've been reading a lot of erotica lately. Oh, something else I didn't pull from the stacks. Some Cha-Cha comics that I read this week as well too. We'll talk about those right after this. I'm liking these stories. I like the idea of this kind of freedom and not being racked by guilt because of sexuality, whatever your sexuality happens to be. I like the idea of stories that are digging into the taboo, into stuff that's apparently not conversation in polite society. And it's a good point, and one that I think has been made by many people. We're inundated with violence and war, especially now we're inundated with babies being killed in Gaza. That is just fucking horrific. But show a nipple or something like that, and people kind of get all fucking their panties in a twist, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, look at these pages. Again, we deal with like these long panels. Rasa and I were talking, of course, we were talking about Precious Metal and Ian Bertram's use of these long panels. Same thing in this one. I really dig the way that looks. One of the things, let's see if there's a good example of it in here. This stuff I really like too, as she's kind of going off into a dream. And his style kind of completely changes. I don't know if I'm not as versed in Creepax's stuff as you are, for sure, Gore Vidal, but maybe some other people. I don't remember seeing him kind of draw in this kind of style before. It seemed to be new to my eyes. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong there. Yeah, stuff like this is great. And then we flip the page and we get this beautiful, like, his use of going from those dense imagery to something here where there's a lot of kind of open space. Everything is kind of perfectly balanced. It's just really beautiful. And when you look at his line itself, it feels like it's whatever they call a pen, like a ballpoint pen with like the forks on it or whatever, because you can see sometimes the line separating into two. It's kind of this really interesting mix between a smooth illustrative style line versus something that's a little more scratchy. He kind of finds a middle ground in there that is really appealing. And in reading both of these books, I honestly read them both incredibly slowly. I mean, you look at a page like this, it's pinups and it's fashion photography, you know, that he's probably referencing for some of this stuff. But every single page is an absolute stunner. And I love these ones where the page is just made up of a few panels. The Emmanuel artwork was more detailed than Valentina, I thought. Yeah, I could see that. So beautiful. Really, really great. Yeah, these are fantastic pages too here. This pattern on the bed there, really so good, man. And I think, does he follow it up with, yeah, then he follows it up with some more stuff that's kind of white space, as our two main characters at this point are pleasuring themselves for each other. Yeah, so good use of a tennis match as well too. We get a lot of good action, still kind of retains that erotic nature and sexual nature, but also gives us a little bit of action, cheeky shorts, etc. So These were fantastic. I don't think I need to go on too much more about them. You all know Creepax, and if you don't know Creepax, like I said, Fantagraphics has released a bunch of his collected works over the years. Let's see if I can get to where are we here? What do we got? Put those there. Yeah, dude. So we talked about Rotundo before when we talked about this Ex Libris Eroticus. There was 3 of these from Cha Cha Comics, and I read book number 2, and I think as much as I loved, and again, we talked before about there's another Magnus. As much as I loved this 110 pills, this is very much a standout just in kind of the erotic comics that I've started to dig a little deeper into. This is a standout for sure. After reading these 2, I desperately want to read book 3 of this. This is an incredible series of short stories. Rotundo went on to do some design, even for film. He worked on, so back in the day when DVDs were becoming a thing, I was living out east in Ontario, and I was adamantly against DVDs. I'm like, fuck that. I have VHS. What's the big deal? Then I started seeing the special features that were on movies, and that kind of instantly sold me. The very first DVD I ever bought myself was Titus with Anthony Hopkins. I love Titus. Rotundo did some design work for the movie Titus. I'm blanking on the director's name. I can't remember her name right now. Tamor, I can't remember her name. Anyway, someone will say it, I'm sure, in the comments. So Rotundo did some work in film, doing some, I think he did possibly costume design. I don't know exactly. I was reading a little bit on, the ever popular Wikipedia, I think it's called, that I'm sure is exact and precise and detailed in its knowledge. But he had quite a career outside of comics. So Rotundo is the name that he went under when he was doing his erotic comics. These are standouts that I can't even really describe. Some of this stuff just has an appeal that Julie Taymor, thank you. Yes, that's correct. At the end of the 19th century, the bourgeois and the aristocracy practiced a secret pastime, erotic literature. They ordered books from established artists like Beardsley, Klinger, Rops, Klimt, or von Bayros. These books appeared in numbered editions, which were strictly limited. Each patron gave the artist detailed indications concerning his intimate tastes and personality. Protected by their high social positions, the patrons had nothing to fear from the courts, which considered every text or image dealing with sex to be a criminal offense. It was the artist rather than the patron who had to account for public opinion and the law. Often they had the finger of scorn pointed at them and were penalized for their transgressions. Most of the time, the contents of these valuable books implied the mentality of a certain class and a certain epoch, a time in which man was the center of the world, a center of a world where his virility symbolized his superiority, while women were condemned to play a passive role. As far as I'm concerned, the Ex Libris Eroticus is a collection of short stories evoking the themes and influence of liberty, where man and woman are but two sides of the same coin, and where love and sex bring about the events of life. Massimo Rotundo. I mean, if that hasn't sold you on this, I don't know what will, other than showing you some imagery here. He has such a clean style in this. There's touches of Magnus when we looked at that. Necron, the main female character, I find has a very similar kind of design. But each of these short stories, I don't know, man. Each of these short stories, they just, this stuff has something else going on with it than just kind of smut. There's a look into, I guess there's a look into people's psyches. There's a look into what people find erotic and what people get pleasure out of fantasizing about. There's definitely a sense of power. There's one story in here where it's a group of guys um, hanging out together, that like they do every year, I think. And they're kind of all from more powerful positions in society, and it's their one time of year to let loose, and each of them goes to a different room to, yeah, this one here, to partake in their own form of decadence. And at the end, we see the final gentleman. His form of decadence is watching his friends and seeing what kind of filth they're into. So it really does become, that's how he gains his sexual pleasure, but it's also for him a power thing. I now know these secrets about you that you're only sharing with this other person in the room. So a really great little story here. But this style is fantastic. There's some parts in here too that really remind me of like the old absinthe advertisements from France. I guess, I don't know if that was Art Nouveau, if that was called. I'm not sure. I'm saying things that I don't fully understand myself, I think, but really great. I even see shades of like Scoia'tain in images like this and some of the layouts and things. This story was great. It was a husband and wife who have kind of lost that spark in their relationship and that kind of sexual excitement. So the rest of the story explores each of them kind of finding that excitement again with other partners and other situations, all the while staying together, not keeping secrets from each other. They kind of reignite this passion by having sex on a train track as a train is coming towards them, so that that kind of release and that moment of, you know, impending death that of course they escape at the very last second. So such fantastic stuff. I'd read 100 more volumes of this, honestly. There wasn't a bad story in here. So if you ever find yourself seeing a collection of Cha-Cha comics by some strange reason, and these are in there, I wouldn't hesitate for a second, even if they are a little bit pricier than normally you'd want to pay, because they're worth every penny, these ones. So very, very good. Very, very good stuff there. I also dug into the rest of this Pearls of Love by Levi and Leroy. I can't say I thought too much about this one. There's another one by the same creators here called Coco that I haven't read yet, and I think it's going to take me a while to read this. This one really read as kind of a romance novel. There wasn't much to it. The art was fine. The art looked really nice, but even the artwork kind of reminded me of like the Italian kind of giallo, like the pulpy kind of comics. It really had a feel of that to it. It had moments where it was kind of engaging, I guess, but it really just read like a romance tryst. There wasn't much meat to it, really. It also was very kind of, how am I trying to put this? I don't know. Again, it was like, it even kind of reminded me of like this kind of pulpy sexploitation kind of cinema that was big in the United States in like the 50s and 60s. It just was missing something. There was just an ingredient that was missing from this to really put it over the edge as something fantastic like the other stories. So this was definitely the lowest mark in these group of Cha-Cha comics. A standout and a standout. These two I would not hesitate on. This Magnus 110 Pills, we talked about it before. Fantastic story in this one too, so I wouldn't sleep on any of these. I'll catch up on the comments here. As usual, I've made myself a mess to contend with after the stream. Let's see. Let's see. I lucked out on eBay on an eBay lot for all 4 Razor Guts. Oh, that's cool. But still don't have any Young Witches. Those are way out of my budget. Yeah, those tend to get really expensive. Keep an eye out. Also, Eros did a series of graphic albums that collected a lot of those stories. I don't know. I think like 20 volumes or something that are sort of the same magazine size. Colin Blanchette, when we went out to visit Ryan Carey last year in Minneapolis, we found a couple of fantastic comic shops, and Colin found some of those volumes in that shop for a really, really good price. So they do exist out there. You might have a better chance getting some of those and getting a decent price than the single issues, because you're right, those single issues are they skyrocket in price all of a sudden. I don't quite understand it. I've just seen the first Emmanuel, enjoyed it. Yeah, I've only seen a couple myself. This is the winning comment of the stream, I think, there, 420. So we'll put that back up there. I didn't know that. 30 printers. Wow. Yeah. Emmanuel artwork is more detailed than Valentina. Incredible work. I'm still mad at the clerk who wouldn't let me buy Heavy Metal magazine, but he did let me get Punisher. Yeah. I mean, that says it all right there, right? So sorry, kid. You can't have any naked ladies, but take this guy that's seeking revenge for a killing of his family by slaughtering a bunch of people. I got that Story of O book recently, but haven't read it yet. Nice to get a look at those other ones. Thanks for showing. No problem there, Dan. Julie Taymor. I've never seen those, Terrence. Beautiful books and interesting stories. Totally, you've got a great eye. There are 4 volumes of Young Witches. Colin Blanchette himself. Look at that. 4 volumes of it. There you go. Yeah, those Eros collections of it also seem really pricey. Okay, I haven't looked too much into those collections. That's it for the smut. Now let's talk about Batman. So some of these I won't have too much to say. I think I've spoken about this one to death. Batman Dark Age. Honestly, at this point, I couldn't really tell you what's going on in this anymore. I am enjoying it still, but I'm less excited about it after 5 issues than I was maybe after like 2 issues or 3 issues. And I think sometimes that's the problem with some of these. I feel like it just goes on too long. I feel like they don't sometimes know when enough is enough. So yeah, I'm still digging it. I'm still loving the all red art, but that's all I'll say about that one. These were, again, 420 is here. Shout out to 420 for turning me on to the local shop that had some Peep Show. There was a bundle that had issue 2, 3, 4, and 5. I already had issue 4. I've read these stories multiple times. I've got some collections. I think it's called Poor Bastard that collects this early Peep Show stuff. So I've read these multiple times, but I could not resist reading them again. And they're still just as amazing as they are every single time I'm reading them. One of the bonuses of this particular issue is issue number 2 from May 1992. Who do we have here? We have a letter from the one and only Mr. Ryan Carey, 4-Color Apocalypse, that we all know and love from Twitter, and he's done some YouTube. He writes for the Comics Journal sometimes. He's got his own Patreon that he writes for. He's just started publishing, self-publishing. He has one kind of book out now. I'm blanking on the artist's name. I didn't write it down before the stream. So really great to see that little nugget. I sent a photo to him and Colin, and we had a brief little chat about it on Twitter. So he's surrounded by a lot of great people here. Pete Bagg, Ed Brubaker is in here. I thought Seth was in this one, but maybe not. That might have been another letters page. But Ed Brubaker and Peter Bagg anyway. So shout out to Ryan Carey. These just can't get any better, honestly. It's incredible to me that Joe Matt's stuff is just so timeless that every single time it's funny. It's not that it only plays as funny one time. It's every single time I read his stuff, I I so thoroughly enjoy it. It's such a pleasure. His style is so great. And at this time, especially, it's very bold. I love when he gives himself these extra horny expressions on his face. So these were so much fun to sit and read again. Yeah, I really want to fill in the gaps in my Peep Show collection, like for the single issues. Like I said, I've read all this stuff collected multiple times, but I really need to get the rest of the singles. So there's the cover for issue number 3, and then the cover for issue number 5. So these are all from Drawn and Quarterly. I think, what year? Yeah, 1993 is number 5 here. Who do we have in the letters here? We've got Bob Fingerman here. We got his mom in here as well too. Yeah, so yeah, really great. Joe Matt, RIP. Grendel, Devil Child, again, Gore Vidal, I'm glad you're here, because I think the last stream when we talked about this, you had said that this was one of your favorite Grendel books. Man, oh man, this was a really great 2-issue read. Even though I'm a little lost as to kind of who the characters are in this Grendel universe, I think the story itself still stands on its own. I was talking to Rasa about it this afternoon, and there's this real kind of theme of not only violence and how it affects your life, but also this kind of generational trauma that can happen when you're subjected to this intense life our main character here has. This is from 1999, Tim Sale. I know that not everybody is a fan of Tim Sale, including an individual who might currently be in the chat, but I've always liked Tim Sale's art. Does he do the coloring in this one too? Painted color by Teddy Christensen in this one. So story by Diana Schutz, who was longtime editor of Grendel and other books, but worked with Matt Wagner for quite a long time. I really liked the story. It was absolutely not a happy tale, though. It just kind of gets a little darker and darker as it goes on, and especially when you start kind of pulling back and getting a bigger picture and seeing, again, it's one of those books where we talked this afternoon about some things that you can only do in comics, and I feel like the way that this book moves through time is something that you can only do in comics. It would be a big thing of like a fade in and a fade out and a putting titles up of May 1999 and stuff like that. You know what I mean? They would really kind of over accentuate this passage of time. Whereas this one, I feel like it works really well when you kind of sit with this character. Just like she doesn't understand the passing of time, you as a reader don't understand. She comes in contact with her daughter. I think that it's her daughter anyway. Obviously, a lot of things are up in the air. But, and the daughter ages in the couple of times that she comes to visit. And that passage of time seems to hold no importance to our main character. And again, as a reader, it's the same thing. You then realize what's going on, you know, and I think it's handled really well. But like I said, this is far from a happy story with a happy ending, but very, very well done, man. Really excellent 2-issue series. And again, for somebody like me that's just getting into the whole Grendel universe, it still read really well for me. I felt a little lost at times, but not so much that I felt I had to put the book down and do a little more research. Yes, indeed. It's a tragic story. Even for me, it is difficult to revisit it. It's a powerful work. My first exposure to him was Armed and Dangerous, so thought he was another Miller, but see his virtues more and more. I liked what you said in the live stream about generational trauma. That's what Grendel is about. Yeah, cool. Usagi Ojimbo, I just finished reading the first Fantagraphics collected edition with my daughter. one of the things that appealed to me a lot about that book was the character growth and the arcs and kind of the messaging within it. This was a fantastic final issue to this Crow. This Crow, I feel like I say this with every mini series that comes from Usagi Yojimbo, and just like a million other people on YouTube, we all love Usagi, and we don't need to pass on why we think it's so good. But I will say that this one ended spectacularly. Stray Dog is this character's name. Usagi himself is very judgmental of Stray Dog at the end of this story. In this world, we look out for ourselves. Do you think anyone else would look after you? It's no wonder they call you Stray Dog. You're alone. No one cares for you because you don't care for anyone but yourself. So take your reward and get out of my sight. And then, of course, we cut to months later, and Stray Dog is visiting an orphanage where he's bringing another child to live at the orphanage and hand over the bag of money that he's made from this latest bounty to the woman at the orphanage to help take care of the children. So really, really fantastic. And it really did feel like the Fantagraphics books. It had that same kind of feeling within this ending that it does in those Fantagraphic ones. I have 2 more of the Fantagraphics volumes coming in the mail. Hopefully by the end of the week they get here. We'll see. But I'm really looking forward to reading those with my daughter. She's pretty excited to dig into this stuff more too. So it may spark us reading a bunch of Usagi Yojimbo together. But yeah, this was a stellar, no surprise. Zatanna issue number 3. I'm so glad that I decided to give this a chance. This is a really, really fun book. Visually, it's pretty stunning. The coloring is stunning. These pages are fantastic. I mean, look at this. What the hell more do you need in a comic that is a kind of mainstream magic wielding pseudo superhero book? So much fun. The story, not mind-blowing by any stretch, but it is just a lot of fun to sit and read every month. I'm really enjoying this book. Yeah, enough said about that. It's good. If you haven't read this and any of this looks appealing, maybe wait for a collection. I'm sure there's going to be a collection coming of this stuff. I don't know when exactly that kind of stuff happens, but it's worth your time, honestly. Really fun. Hate Revisited, issue number 3. One more issue to go. And what struck me about this issue was that I'm really kind of sad that there's only one more issue to go. What makes the Hate and Peter Bagge universe so good with those older comics is that you followed these characters for years. So you had these little moments with them when Buddy would interact with them. And then you could revisit them later on and see how they've kind of advanced or devolved, I guess, maybe in some cases. But this was another great issue. I love the kind of choices of stories. It opens up with a black and white story of Buddy and his sister Babs and how he used to torment her and kind of actually how she was treated in the house by not only Buddy, but by her father or by their father as well too. Really interesting to kind of put that perspective on it that I guess I never really fully realized when these were coming out, or at least it gave you another nugget to think about why these characters had this childhood that they had. And it's kind of amazing that any of them came out of that childhood with any sort of sense of, I don't know, self-confidence or right and wrong. Really, really great. And then we cut to a color story where we now see Buddy visiting with Babs in present time. They end up going to visit their mom in the kind of old folks home that she's living in, and find out that one of the neighbors is his friend Stinky's mom, who Buddy then goes and sees and sits with. Of course, their mother has a Trump flag, a Trump sign outside of her place there. So, yeah, this was a great issue. And like I said, I really just wish that this was going to exist for another couple of years, because I'd love to kind of keep coming back to some of these stories and see these stories progress. So that's the only downside of it being only a 4-issue miniseries. We get to see another side of Buddy and Lisa as well, where they're sort of the cool aunt and uncle to one of Babs's kids here. She loves spending time with them and really thinks that they're legitimately cool people. So it's neat to see that dynamic as well. And then it ends off with a Stinky. It's 16-year-old Stinky in Latchkey Party Time. Just a little insight as to what Stinky's life would have been with his mother, who was this kind of hippie. And there's a fantastic story on the inside front and back cover that honestly, I sometimes, I just can't believe that it was printed in here. Really, really great. Stretch Pants is a trans maniac. Stretch Pants has a very, very small dick, and his partner has this gigantic whale cock. So it's this whole, he's going through this moment of how can he make himself more appealing to his partner. Somebody suggests that he goes to get a vagina. It's misinterpreted by the doctor, and he ends up hacking off his arm and sewing it to his crotch, which still gets his partner excited about it, who's now carrying his dick around in a wheelbarrow. So just absolutely ridiculous, but really, really fun. Yeah, I'm really going to miss it. I'm kind of not looking forward to issue number 4, because I kind of don't want it to end. It's been really nice to revisit this world. Sacrificers issue number 11. Again, one of those not too much to say. This was a great issue. It was a heartbreaking issue. Our god here that's kind of been zapped of her power is an absolute fucking coward, and I hated her by the end of this issue, which I think is where you're supposed to be. So it's been interesting seeing the arc of our Pigeon character and our kind of princess character here. Yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking, this one, for sure. So it's kind of, it had a couple of issues that were maybe tiny bits of missteps where they didn't kind of hit like the other ones did, but this is back full force, as he's kind of the Pigeon family is forced to give up their final child for a sacrifice. Every family has to offer another sacrifice or give up where this princess is. And she hears this and doesn't let them know that I'm the princess that you're looking for. Rasa had an interesting take on it this afternoon, that maybe she's dealing with some senility due to the energy that got zapped out of her. I didn't read it that way in here, but that's a very valid comment on this. But I'm really digging this book. Grommets, another one not to say too much about. Love this book, issue 4 of 7. This one gives us a little more drama as opposed to the other ones that have given us like a lot of comedy and a lot of these funny moments. We get a little taste of one of our main characters' lives with his parents. His father is a recovering alcoholic, but we get a little bit of a sample of potentially what his life was like when his father was kind of in the throes of alcoholism. They're moving. He's being told that they're going to move again. And he kind of has this moment where he kind of breaks down and, why do you keep doing this to me? What the hell did I ever do? I want to just stay in one place, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, we get the stoners. I just actually bought myself a bunch of shirts. One of the shirts I bought myself was a DRI shirt, so it was nice to see that make an appearance in the book here. So this is great. It's a good mix of drama and nostalgia for me. I've talked about it before. These are the kind of people that I hung out with. These are the kind of people that we were, stoners and skateboarders and punk rockers and weirdos and whatever. So I mean, this kind of hits home for me in a much different way than other stuff kind of based in this nostalgia, trying to recapture some sort of nostalgia. Firefly, just a one-shot. Malcolm Reynolds, year 1. I was saying in the stream this afternoon that I feel like I'm a little too close to the Malcolm Reynolds character. I feel like out of the characters in the show, he's one of them that I identify with the most. That said, I really didn't like this book, because I'm going to say something that I thought I'd never hear myself say. I wouldn't write it like that. This isn't my character. All joking aside, though, I do feel like I was just kind of disappointed. I don't know. I think I had expectations again because I just think I'm too close to the character and the show. I know that none of these comics are going to recreate the magic that happened with the TV show, and I don't expect them to by any stretch. That said, though, there's been a lot of these comics that have been enjoyable in their own way. I just don't think this one hit the mark. I appreciate what story they were trying to tell with this one. It just didn't really work for me. It wasn't a story that was for me, I suppose. I'm glad I picked it up, and I'm really glad that Boom Studios is still doing this stuff. I'm always down for reading more Firefly, so you can bet your bottom dollar that if another one comes up on the shelf, I'll be grabbing it regardless. But I think this is only a one-shot. I think this is only a single issue. And last but not least, I had to check out the first issue of the Universal Monsters series, Frankenstein. The first volume they did was Dracula. I really enjoyed that one. The second book they did was Creature from the Black Lagoon. I picked up the first issue and really thought it was a stinker, so I didn't stick with it. But I had to give this one a try, and honestly, I kind of liked this one quite a bit. So Michael Walsh is the writer-artist, and Toni Marie Griffin is the colorist. Becca Carey is the letterer. Sort of taking the premise of Frankenstein and twisting it a little bit. I mean, as all of these stories have done, I'd say that, I mean, obviously I can't say that about Creature from the Black Lagoon, but from what I read and what I understand about that series, it's not a direct adaptation of the film. It retains a lot of that original stuff, but then kind of moves it into its own direction. I would say the Dracula book did something similar. This one seems to be a similar again, that it's going to take this Frankenstein story and give it a minor twist here. I'm curious about it. I really like the art. I really like the cover a lot. This cover really appeals to me. So I'm glad I checked it out. I'll stick around. I think these ones, they're probably what I can't remember what the Dracula book was. Was it only 4 issues? I don't remember, but I think I'll stick around for this one. It's got my attention with this first issue. The Creature from the Black Lagoon one, it just had nothing going that interested me in that first issue. So I didn't even give it a second look when the next ones came up on the shelf. Yeah, not much to say about this. If you are curious, the other ones have been collected. There's a hardcover available in October, and then there's the Dracula one now that's available. James Tynion IV and Martin Simmons. The art in this one was really the standout from this Dracula book. So there you have it, Frankenstein. And I think that is it. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. I'm still working on reading through the Jam. I do eventually want to talk about Bernie Moreau and definitely talk about this book. I'm going to be writing something for a special issue of a zine eventually. I have a lot of mixed feelings about the suicide that I have a lot of mixed feelings about the death of Bernie Moreau. Let's say that. I have a lot of mixed feelings with people, what is being said about this and what he apparently felt himself, the recognition he felt he deserved, et cetera, et cetera. It's tragic anytime someone takes their own life, 100% tragic. And it's really too bad that he felt that was the way out. And I think, again, it's really difficult to have these kind of conversations where people just don't seem to have the resources or the ability to kind of take care of themselves, so they don't do things like this. It's really just unfortunate that he thought that this was the only way out that he had. So RIP to Bernie Moreau. The Jam has been a blast to read, especially now that I'm getting into some books that I haven't read multiple times. And I'll have a lot to talk about. We'll talk about, when I finish the whole thing, we'll definitely talk about the series itself. And we'll do kind of a proper look into some other Bernie Moreau stuff. Maybe we'll look at, he appears in some anthologies and things that I have too, so we'll look at some of his work at some point. But in the meantime, RIP to Bernie Moreau. Thanks very much, everybody. It's great to see you all, as always. Gore Vidal, Dan Ellison, 420, Colin Blanchette. Who am I missing? I think that's it. I appreciate you guys spending time on your Sundays and hanging out with me. I look forward to talking to you again. I'm working next weekend, so I won't be around. I don't know how much reading I'm going to get to do this week, but if I do, guarantee you'll see me next Sunday night. So thanks a lot. Talk to you later.